Here's how the ancient Greeks shaped our lives today with some of their inventions. Number 10. Alphabets. Did you know that we have the ancient Greeks to thank for the form of different alphabets we use today? Even the word alphabet itself comes from the first two letters of their alphabet, alpha and beta. Although the ancient Greeks derived their alphabet from the Phoenician one, theirs was the first alphabet ever that had different letters for both vowels and consonants. Before that, alphabets only had letters for consonants, which isn't as fun as it might sound to some. The creation of the Greek alphabet inspired the creation of many other alphabets still used today. Of course, languages have evolved and will keep on evolving with time, but the original idea of writing down vowels and consonants hasn't changed much, which is exactly how we write today. Well, not everyone. You should see how some of my friends text. Number 9. The shower. When I think about hygiene habits of ancient civilizations, I think about soaking in a big tub or maybe a river once in a while, or maybe not soaking at all. However, it turns out that people in ancient times liked feeling clean as much as we do today. Apparently, standing under waterfalls and washing yourself that way was a major thing back then, which inspired the ancient Greeks to create showers. Wanting to replicate that waterfall effect many enjoyed, the ancient Greeks came up with this genius idea of using their aqueducts and sewage systems and making their own showers. They first implemented the shower in common areas, such as in gymnasiums or public baths, but later on, they started implementing showers in private houses as well. Now, if you're thinking something along the lines of manually pouring water from big containers or something, let me stop you right there. They actually had real showers with pumps to bring water in, shower heads mounted higher on the walls, and sewage systems sophisticated enough to let the dirty water out. I'm definitely happy that we have showers in our lifetime, or else things pretty much would suck big dirty balls. Number 8. Maps. Maps have come quite the long way today with the help of GPS and satellite use, meaning that the chances of you getting lost somewhere are minimal. However, have you ever thought about who thought about using maps first? Do I really even need to say this? Yeah, it was the ancient Greeks. You can thank for coming up with the first maps. Since they did like to make their lives simpler, it's no wonder they were the first ones to create detailed maps. Anaximander was the first one who brought the latitude and longitude into use. He started drawing detailed maps based on the latitude and longitude, which of course meant each thing was shown with its exact location. Anaximander was the first ancient Greek to draw a map of the known world. Thus, he's considered by many to be the first map maker. The creation of maps greatly influenced the development of astronomy and geography. Before all that, maps were just a bunch of poorly drawn pictures or written instructions. Turn left and keep going, then turn right when you see a large tree on the road. Just isn't quite as helpful as actually seeing where you'll actually be headed. Number 7. The odometer. An odometer is a digital instrument that measures distance in any vehicle, such as in cars or bikes. Did you think you have to thank modern technology for it? Yeah, maybe for the digital ones, but the first odometers ever, which were mechanical, were invented in ancient Greece. Apparently, Alexander the Great was so worried about measuring distance that he used bemetists pretty often. Bemetists were professionals specifically trained to measure distance with their footsteps. Quite the job they had, huh? However, this whole thing probably seemed kind of inaccurate, since you know, no matter how much they trained, each bemetist probably had a different length of footstep. And wouldn't they get tired after a while? So, ancient Greeks came up with the idea of using a mechanical device to do all the measuring in a more precise way, the odometer. Evidence suggests that, funny enough, bemetists were the first ones to use the devices made to replace them. They carried them while walking to confirm their measurements, but later on, they were installed to horse carts. Since I don't see any bemetists around, the rest is history. Number 6. The Olympics. The Olympics are one of the most popular worldwide events when it comes to sports, and they're watched by millions of people. So you can't really mention ancient Greece without saying something about the Olympic Games, which were first held in honor of the god Zeus. In case you've been living off the grid your entire life, the modern Olympic Games are held every 4 years, a tradition that was the same all the way back then. Back in the day, they had people from different city-states compete, and most of them were amateurs. They competed mostly for fame and for that olive leaf crown, which I'm sure was something of a pretty big deal to win at the time. The Olympic Games were extremely important to the ancient Greeks. They stopped wars so people from different cities could travel safely and participate in them. And I'm gonna guess that not many things could stop wars at that time. The opening and closing ceremony of the games have remained almost exactly the same. Remember that thing with the Olympic fire and how people run around with a flaming torch to light it? Well, they did the same in ancient Greece as well. Nowadays, it's still a huge honor to compete at the Olympics, and only the best of the best in the world get a chance to participate. Number 5, the concept of citizenship. Being a citizen of a country comes with certain privileges and duties which are more or less the same in modern countries nowadays. But did you know that the whole concept of citizenship dates back to ancient Greece? Well, there's actually some dispute who actually came up with the concept, as ancient Israelites have thrown their hat in the ring as well. But let's just say that the Greeks were one of the first ones, if not the first ones, to create the concept of citizenship. For the ancient Greeks, citizenship was viewed as a way to create unbreakable bonds between people and the state, or in their case, with their city-states. In order to be considered a citizen back then, you had to fulfill certain criteria, such as being born to parents of that city-state, pay taxes, or participate in the army, which isn't that much different from today. Greeks shaped the whole citizenship idea because they valued their freedom so much, they were scared they might move in between classes of society. For example, a Greek farmer might fall into debt and therefore might become a slave at almost any time. Even though their perspective of an ideal society definitely had a few faults, such as classifying people into citizens and non-citizens, the Greeks came up with the basic idea, and the concept has evolved over time. Number 4, alarm clocks. The importance of this is pretty much self-explanatory, since there are billions of people around the world who wake up with alarm clocks so they can be on time to do whatever it is they need to do. We probably have to thank the great philosopher Plato for this invention. He was really smart and apparently really busy, so it's only natural he wanted something to signal him whenever it was time to start his lectures or wake up in the morning. Ancient alarm clocks were nothing like the ones we use today. They were complex machines that used different methods to measure time and go off at certain times of the day. It's thought that Plato had a massive alarm machine in his house that used water and made delicate water sounds at certain hours. Other types of alarms used pebbles that would drop and hit on a gong, thus waking up everyone in the house, and probably the neighbors next door as well. But hey, at least no one was late for anything. You think they came up with the snooze button as well? Number 3, science and math. Considering the technology they had available at the time, the contributions of ancient Greeks to science and math have been nothing short of outstanding and largely influenced modern society as we know it. They've done so much, it's impossible to pick only a few, to be honest with you. Remember those weird letters, symbols in math and science class that only the teachers knew how to write and calculate correctly? Well, they came from the Greek alphabet, which means they were the ones who derived them and knew how to apply them in everyday use. Ancient Greeks influenced geometry a lot. They had developed many of the theories and principles discovered back then, and obviously many are still applicable today, such as the famous Pythagorean theorem. They insisted that deductive thinking must be applied when it comes to natural sciences instead of just accepting facts as they are. I'd say people nowadays need to use that thinking in a lot of different aspects of life, but hey, that's just me. Hey, how about the fact that the Earth is round? Though the earliest written mention of a spherical Earth comes from the ancient Greek sources, there is no account of how the sphericity of the Earth was discovered. Aristotle and Pythagoras were among the first ones to suggest that the Earth may actually be round. That idea was quite shocking at the time, to say the least, but fast forward thousands of years later, and we still have plenty of flat earthers out there. Hey, sometimes some people just need to see some things with their own eyes. Number 2, the crane. A crane is a machine specially designed to lift and move heavy objects around. You've seen it around, since building something without using the crane would be pretty much impossible. I mean, just pointing out the obvious here, but since not many of us can lift things that literally weigh a ton, if you're thinking that the crane isn't that special considering the development of modern technology and everything, then you're in for a big surprise. It is. Okay, there's not really that much of a big reveal here, but you can't build any skyscrapers without using cranes. Well, actually you probably could, but good luck getting that done. The crane was invented by the ancient Greeks in the 6th century BC. While it's true that modern cranes are obviously much more sophisticated, they still use the same mechanism developed by the ancient Greeks. Archaeologists doing research on ancient Greek sites were able to confirm this, noting that some of the stones had specific markings and holes in them, suggesting the huge blocks were lifted and moved around. The first cranes ever were just a bunch of ropes used to lift stones, but over time, the ancient Greeks implemented the whole winch and pulley thing as well. It looks like they got the inspiration for a machine like this while building their temples. In all fairness, the temples they built are one of the biggest construction achievements in the history of mankind. They're still considered marvels today, let alone thousands of years ago. The crane is so simple and yet so ingenious. How else would you be able to lift massive stone blocks off the ground and arrange them that high in those Greek-style pillars? Number 1, democracy. Modern societies wouldn't be quite the same without the concept of democracy, at least the societies where democracy is practiced. Anyway, the word democracy can be roughly translated to rule by the people, meaning that each member of society gets to decide how the country he or she lives in is run. The first ever system of democracy was founded in Athens in 507 BC. The main idea is that the people give ruling powers to the government so that the government could serve its people and not the other way around. Wow, the ancient Greeks were pretty advanced back then. I mean, there are still countries that still don't have democracy today. Ancient Greeks used more of what's called a direct democracy, meaning that anyone who was considered a citizen could have been picked to participate in the government. Their elections were held each year, although they weren't quite like the elections we're used to seeing. Theirs were more like a ballot thing. They just randomly picked 500 adult men who were thought capable of decision-making, and those random men would serve the government for a year. The use of a lottery to select office holders was regarded as the most democratic means, as the ancient Greeks thought that the elections would favor those who were rich, noble, eloquent, and well-known. The lottery would spread the work of administration throughout the whole citizen body, engaging them in the crucial democratic experience of, to use Aristotle's words, ruling and being ruled in turn. Nowadays, modern countries use representative democracies, but the idea is basically the same. People choose who represents them in governing bodies. When it came to bringing new laws into force, not a single law has been passed without each present citizen voting. Of course, the majority would win. Obviously, democracy is important because it restricts the ruling power of an individual, so no society falls under the mercy of a crazy dictator. Here's what's next.
History is oftentimes told by the winners, or in this particular case, by the rich and powerful. If I know one thing to be true, it's that, well, that and taxes. And, oh yeah, death. Anyways, remember how all of the hieroglyphs and paintings show tall, slender, and athletic men and women running around doing the daily tasks in